You're listening to Two Girls, One Crossword.
Do you hear that, listeners? The sound of my cat purring as... Okay, no! Sorry, he pushed the mic down. Arnold, you have to go. You know, this is what that's what he would like to do the entire podcast, but I don't let him because he can't just sit still and be quiet. He purrs really, really loud, which is very cute, but it's annoying for
yeah.
podcasting issues, so...
And he has to be, like, right there, too.
Mm-hmm. Checks out on YouTube if you want to see a cameo from him. And
yes.
Guess where I am in my apartment again. I've changed my background once again. Keep everyone on their toes.
Seriously. She's actually moved house yet again. This is a whole new apartment.
I actually just go into random apartments and record.
It actually works out nicely for you. So, yeah. Question for you.
Yes.
Have you listened to the new Beyonce album?
Only the songs that are on TikTok.
Okay. First of all, there's a song called Virgo Rising, which is for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I saw a really great, this is like a sidebar, I saw a really great thing on Instagram. It was like, this is your astrology based on your Beyonce song from her new album. And you got Virgo Rising and I got Alien Superstar, which just totally makes sense. Anyway, checks out. But first of all, would recommend, very good. And then it just jogged so many memories for me listening to the album. For instance, watching DJ Khaled scooter across the stage when we saw him open for Beyonce.
Well, the stage was big, to be fair.
To be fair, but it's also not something I expected that night.
No. And Hallie and Chloe opened.
They did. It was amazing.
That was like earlier in their careers. Anyway, Chelsea and I used to be cool once.
Yeah,
Vaguely.
we did. Vaguely cool. We were like on the peripheral of cool.
Hello, we went to Lollapalooza.
We did. We saw Ariana Grande there. It's kind of a big deal. So,
believe it or not, we're out in the like suburbs of the audience though, because I cannot stand like that. Like,
no, I needed to
in
sit
between all those people. Yeah,
we found a nice spot on a hill where you could see the stage, and it was shady. You know me.
Perfect.
Sun protection.
Okay. Out in the sun? No.
Absolutely not. I'm like sitting under the trees, slathering on more sunscreen.
That is true. Well, everyone, you're listening to Two Girls, One Crossword, your favorite weekly Podword Crosscast, although we haven't been weekly lately because, well, it's a perfect storm of issues. We were going to take time off anyway, and then I got COVID.
Oh my God. It happens.
And now we're back.
We try our best. We really do.
I mean, it's, you make it 2 years into the pandemic and you don't get it. Then I feel like everyone has gotten it now.
There's like, I think 2 people in our kind of like circle of friends that hasn't gotten it yet. Just 2. They're holding strong. Hannah. Clean and clear. And Kara.
Wow. Kara hasn't got it. Okay. Anyway, not to nothing about her. It's just like with her job. I feel like a lot of people in that job get it. But
and her boyfriend had it, and they live in the same apartment. But they had enough room where they could quarantine, which was nice, and they did. He quarantined from her like a saint.
But
God bless him.
You don't know. Like I wasn't. Not to share all my details with everyone, but
sure.
I wasn't sure. I was testing negative. I was like, maybe it's just a cold, and then I turned to quarantine and it was bad. But at that point, it was too late, and
that's how it was with me and Matt. It was like Matt tested negative for days. We were like, the seasons are changing. We just put the air in. We're just putting dust in our face. Yeah, you can get a cold, or it could be allergies, anything. It was just like sniffly nose type stuff, and then. 5 days in, he tests positive. And by that time, we had been living and breathing the same air for 5 days. And I was like, okay, well, let's just pretend I have it.
Waiting for you to fall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun stuff. Anyways, so sorry that we haven't posted in a while. And also that I didn't put a poll. So there's no Pollapalooza. Kind of an anticlimactic return. Okay. I have been focusing on keeping my knees. Okay, my knees are affected. Does anyone else?
I was like, are you saying knees or needs with a D?
Knees, both.
Okay.
I had like the worst body aches in my legs, and my knees are still hurting. Like when I walk up the stairs, my knees are hurting and my ankles are hurting.
I had a friend who, well, she got COVID pretty bad really early on, was in the hospital, and she couldn't walk afterwards for a while because she had to be with like a cane or a walker because, yeah, it really affected her muscles. And I was like, God damn it.
Oh, so
scary.
We'll see. I mean, I feel like I'm still in the recovery phase.
Yeah.
It's only been...
It'll take a couple weeks. It's just one day at a time, And that's our therapy podcast.
All right. Well, see you for next week. No. We do have some news from the Crossword
stuff. Yeah, let's get into some crossword news. Let me just, of course, I'm never ready for this section. So I have to pull up my notes, as they say, on the side of the Mississippi. All right, news. Lollapuzzoola is back, baby. If you don't know what Lollapuzzoola is a crossword tournament. This year will be its 15th year, so congrats to Brian and forget who else runs it. Sorry.
It's your quinceañera.
Yes, there you go. You better wear some pretty dresses, etc. Anyway, so it is a one-day puzzle event. There's 5 puzzles, lots of bonus content, including meta crosswords, multi-puzzle suites, and more. If you are interested in participating in Lollapuzzoola, it is happening on Saturday, August 27th. It will be live in New York City this year.
Ugh.
Live.
One year we will go to it, but listen, stop scheduling it on my birthday weekend, okay? I have other plans already on that day, so...
She is booked
and
busy.
Once again, I won't be there, and I'm sorry, but...
Yeah, sorry. There's a live in person, so you can like go and like actually be there and like with other constructors, etc. Or you can participate in the live online version. They will be streaming it as well, so you can participate online if you would like on the day. Like, for instance, I mean, even if Grace wasn't booked and busy for her birthday, like what I can't make it to New York City for that weekend. I just can't. It's been a busy month. And if you can't make it to the live online stream, you can participate like basically anytime you want. You can just download, you subscribe, you get the downloaded PDF of all the puzzles, and you can do the puzzles at your leisure if that is your thing. Let's see. This year, the event will be presented by Brian Smet, Brooke Husick, and Sid Sivakumar, and there will be games and puzzles and all types of things from a bunch of different contributors, so that's very exciting. Grace will not be participating. I have no idea if I will be free that weekend, but maybe I can wrangle a friend or Matt to participate with me this year.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Next year, it'll be different.
Pick a different weekend.
Last year, I feel like my birthday was on a Friday or Sunday. If my birthday's not on the weekend, then it's not as big of an issue.
Right.
I feel like it just is the last weekend in August is when they do it.
Yes, I think that's true, because they don't want to do it before Labor Day. They want to do it before Labor Day, etc. So I get it. It just doesn't work out for us, so thanks for that.
Yeah. Sorry, can't make it.
Can't make
I have other plans.
She was born on that day, so. In other news, outside of Lollapuzzoola, Haley Gold and Will Nediger have started Twitch streaming Cryptic crossword solves. Are you familiar with Cryptic crosswords, listeners? If you're not, there might be a good reason for that, because they're very hard. Grace and I have tried Cryptic crosswords many times. I like the concept of a cryptic crossword, and when you solve one, I feel like a literal genius.
Yeah.
But let's say that there's like 30 clues in a puzzle. I might, on a good day, solve half of one answer. Seriously, like that.
They're difficult.
That's being generous, too. It really is being generous. So if you don't know what a cryptic crossword is, it's essentially a crossword puzzle in which each clue is a word puzzle. And there's all different tips and tricks, and there's resources online for you to figure out, like, oh, it's this type of clue. Oh, it's this type of clue, which will then help you solve the word that you're looking for. If you're interested in that kind of thing, wordplay, word games outside of crosswords, would recommend it. Anyway, so Haley and Will are streaming on Twitch Cryptic solves every month, which is really cool. If you remember, if you've been with the podcast for a while, Haley Gold was actually on the podcast. She is the writer-artist behind Letters to Margaret, which is a crossword graphic novel. We had Haley on to talk about the book on episode 86, As the World Turns, so you can check that out. Anyway, if you're interested in catching their streams, they have some exciting content coming up and would recommend checking them out. On August 18th, they will be solving Stephen Sondheim cryptic puzzles with guest Steve Mossberg. And on September 16th, they will also be solving more Sondheim puzzles with guest Tom Tochi. And if you're interested in tuning in, you can head over to twitch.com/bewilderingly. Bewilderingly. And their streams start at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We will put the link to their Twitch stream in our episode description. So click that and enjoy.
We haven't been asked to go and help solve cryptic crosswords. Have us on if you want us to derail the entire
we will
episode.
We will derail it. But it will be fun for us.
Yeah.
At the very least.
For us. For no one else.
I try to live my day having as much fun on my own terms as possible.
Mm.
If someone doesn't laugh at my joke, I just say, you know what? I think it's funny. And that's all that matters. Thank you.
Shall we go into Heights and Shites?
I think it's Heights and Shites time. Since we don't have a poll, we will have a poll next week. So
we will, whether you like it or not.
So find us on Twitter. And we'll pull you to the high heavens. Hits and shits, though. Hits and shits.
I will start with the Monday, August 1st New York Times puzzle by Garrett Shalfin. 41 down, word that would seem to be a portmanteau of traveling groups, but isn't. Troops. Like an acting troupe. And it's true. You would think it would be traveling groups.
You would.
But really, okay, so I want to give one good one because I do have a shit from this puzzle, but it's just me complaining. It's nothing serious.
Okay, still.
39 across. The difference between Mara and Maria, ? And at first I put I, like E-Y-E, which I also don't like when you have to phonetically spell out a letter.
Mm-hmm.
But the answer was an-I, A-N-I. Or Ani, as it looked.
Those are probably up there with like my least favorite type of crossword clues.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand why people have to do them.
I know.
Like to fill in space.
I feel like
I did that on Monday, and I didn't do any other New York Times. After that.
I know, it's a shame. Once you hit one bad New York Times, and you're like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I can't.
Well, now it has to compete with the New Yorker.
I know. The New Yorker is not trying to shit on the New York Times, but the New Yorker is smashing it. They're killing it with all their puzzles. And they've got themed puzzles now on Friday. They're ticking all the boxes for me.
We're not getting paid to say that.
We're not. We should be, but we're not, unfortunately. Speaking of the New Yorker, I did the Friday, June... Oh, no, this is the New York Times, I think. Wait, no. This was the New Yorker. Friday, July 29th, Lynn Lempel, New Yorker. 3 down, Pez collectible. And the answer is dispenser. And I thought about doing the Pez as my topic. Because I don't know if you know this.
Feels like a Chelsea topic.
Yes, I don't know if you noticed, but the Pez factory and the Pez museum is like right down the street from where I went to school in Connecticut. So.
Can I say my gripe about Pez?
Please.
It's the same way I feel about, I think I've talked about this before, orange Tic Tacs, where it's like, you're supposed to only eat one tiny piece of candy and that's it. It's different if it's a mint, fine. Some people just have one Altoid. I don't. I eat like 10 because I'm crazy. But with like the orange Tic Tacs and the Pez, it's just, I don't understand. It's like bottled in a way that makes you think you can only have one at a time. But that's like eating one Skittle and be like,
yeah,
I'm satiated.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Anyway, that's my complaint about Pez. But I love Pez. They're so freaking good.
They are. And they have some really cool dispensers too. Mm-hmm. They really do. I have a friend, speaking of eating candy, I have a friend, I don't know why I thought of this, but they used to eat Halls, you know, like the lozenge?
Yeah.
Like candy. And I'd be like, hey, that's not candy. And they're like, yes, it is. Well, they're I don't know, maybe in where they're from in a different country, it's a different, it is candy, but I was like, the ones here are not candy.
In Thailand, a lot of candy has menthol in it.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know if you're in a different country and your candies or your like hard candies or something, like things that you suck on, have menthol.
Yeah, I can't get behind it, but hey, I'm sure everyone there has very soothed throats, and
yeah, they've got the happiest throats in the world, and I'm over here complaining. Oh, and this one is also from that puzzle. This is just for a quick little sidebar conversation. 18 down. Image file type with a much debated pronunciation.
GIF.
We say GIF here.
I think I say GIF, yeah.
Yeah.
GIF.
GIFs just sounds so
I can't think
weird
about
to
it too
me.
much.
I know. I don't care about the arguments that people have for it. Oh, but how would you say this or how would you say that? I'm like, I literally don't care. You say gin.
It
starts with a G, gin, GIF, whatever. But the creator said it's GIF, so end of. Sorry.
Oh, creator said it's GIF? All right, then we're good.
That's it. Moving on. What else you got?
I did the Wednesday, August 3rd New Yorker by Patrick Berry. A favorite of the friend of the podcast, even though we never talked to him. But 3 down, snack made from celery, peanut butter, and raisins. Was ants on a log.
Did you like ants on a log growing up?
No, I don't like raisins.
I don't like celery or raisins.
I like peanut. Well, then it's not the snack for you. I did like peanut butter on celery, but would be better with like chocolate chips.
Yeah, no, I can't do celery at all. Like in regular life either.
What was I talking about this with you? That there are some people. Maybe Alex also doesn't like celery. There's some people that like the way that some people think cilantro tastes like soap because of their taste buds. There's something like that for celery.
Ooh, that might be it.
That's why because I feel like celery is so unoffensive because it doesn't taste like anything. It's more just about the crunch, which that's every food for me now because I can't taste anything. But
do you have no taste right now?
But I recently smelled something.
I didn't realize you had that. I'm sorry.
No, I can taste a little bit. It's not like completely done, but I couldn't smell a thing. Alex was like, "Can you take the garbage out?" Scoop in Arnold's litter box. I'm like, this is great. Anyways, yeah, so there is a thing that like makes celery taste disgusting and very strong to some people. So
it is if I had to pick my least favorite food in the entire world, it'd be celery. If celery is in anything, it ruins the dish. Like,
well, what about like a lot of soup bases have celery in it?
So when it cooks down, it tastes like stock. But if the celery doesn't cook down enough, I can taste it. I can taste it.
All right, so if you're gonna make soup for Chelsea, cook it down.
Cook her down. Yeah.
Another from this puzzle, 7 down, up for something, oxymoronically. Up for something, down.
Yes, I like that one too.
13 down, hang out in a Twitch stream but never chat, say. The answer is lurk.
Are you gonna lurk in the cryptic Twitch stream at the end of the month?
Maybe. Anything's possible. 19 across, their food gets flown in, and the answer was nestlings.
I liked that one a lot. It's cute.
Me too. And then this was something I hadn't heard of, and then I didn't look it up. So 40 down, bit of footwear also called a Wellington. The answer was gum boot.
Yes, I love me a Wellington, a welly, if you will. A goulash. A galosh? Is that what they're called?
Galoshes. Yeah.
Galosh. I was thinking gulag, but wanted to say galosh.
We don't wear rain boots in Florida. Just go barefoot.
But yeah, mud boot. Or what was it? Gum boot?
Gum boot.
I wonder if it has something to do with like war, honest to God.
Gum?
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds very British for something to do with like World War II.
It sounds British to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Is that
if you're British, let us know. That's funny. Speaking of the New York Times, I think I only did one New York Times this week, and it was the Friday, July 29th by Robin Weintraub, which Robin, love her puzzles. I really liked One Across. I thought the wordplay was fun. Breakout company of the 1970s. And the answer was Atari, because Breakout is an Atari game. And when I was solving the puzzle, I was like, Breakout, like what was a new company in the 70s? You know, I was kind of like tripped up by that. And then obviously when you get it, you're like, oh, that's funny. I also liked 6 down, motley skill set. And the answer is bag of tricks. I like that.
Bag of tricks.
Bag of tricks, baby. You always have to have a trick up your sleeve.
I do. I try to have 2 or 3.
You have to. 36 down, they're broken just for fun. The answer is piñata, of course.
Yes.
I loved that.
I did the Tuesday, August 2nd New Yorker by Brooke Cusick.
It's so good, right?
Yes. Well, okay. This is one that you did that one too, obviously. Then.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of mints or like candy that has menthol, this is another thing. 10 across. Postprandial alternatives to fennel candy. The answer was mints. But in some countries, fennel is in a lot of candy.
Which is
in
offensive.
Scandinavia, that's all you can find. It's all black licorice.
I would never have candy in Scandinavia. Sorry. That's my second least favorite food in the entire world. Is anything with in the fennel family. And then dill falls shortly after that.
I remember so I have to use sulfate-free toothpaste because otherwise I get like a rash on my face. But I was telling my sister how I was using Tom's because that one's the easiest one to get at CVS, even though I feel like Tom's brand kind of sucks. But she was like, Grace, I tried this Tom's toothpaste that you recommended and it's really gross. And I realized she had gotten the fennel flavored. It was literally, and we were like on a trip somewhere, so I borrowed it. I was like, this is the worst thing I can ever imagine, brushing your teeth with black licorice. It's like, that does not feel refreshing after a brush.
Oh my God.
But why, they make that. I don't know if they still make it, but there's a market for it, I guess.
I feel like Tom's would be the brand to have a fennel effing toothpaste. Like, for what?
Well, I mean, I guess people think it's interchangeable with a mint.
It does have
it's an alternative to fennel candy is mint.
I feel like it does have like a, like mint obviously makes your mouth feel cooler. I feel like fennel or like star anise, like they all do that with your mouth. Like they make it feel like more breathy in there. But hey, it tastes horrible. Breathy and horrible? Not for me. I mean, I know you like black licorice.
Yeah, I like black licorice, but I'm not like crazy for it like some people are. Like the Scandinavians are.
Crazy. When Matt eats a piece of black licorice, I can smell it for days, it feels like. And he'll be like, oh, can I have a kiss? And I'm like, literally, don't come near me.
You're like, no, I hate you.
Yeah, we're done.
More from that puzzle, 28 down, feature of some tanks. And the answer is built-in bra.
I liked that a lot.
Mm-hmm. And then this one reminded me of us. If only we were in college together. 46 down, show up 15 minutes late with Starbucks, say. And the answer is roll in.
I roll into work every day with Starbucks 15 minutes late. I'm like, hello?
You gotta swish.
You gotta
ice.
Yeah, hold on. I got an iced coffee here. This is not takeout, so it doesn't count, but just imagine this was Starbucks or Dunks,
I love that idea of coming in. Like, be like, sorry, traffic was crazy.
Sunglasses
like a
on,
Dunkin' Donuts.
And you have your wristlet that's also your wallet, and then your phone, and like your long keychain, and everything's just jangling as you walk in.
I love that ASMR though, that sound of like someone coming in late and sitting down and setting up. It's amazing.
Yeah, if anybody has an ASMR to that specific scenario, just drop us a line, please. Thank you. Is that all you had from that puzzle?
Yeah.
I liked the opener from that puzzle. One across, Oscar or Emmy. And if you listened to our podcast when Grace was talking about EGOT winners, you would know the answer to this. And the answer was statuette. Statuette's a great word, and it's a great opener. It's a great clue. Overall, very, very nice. I also liked 51 across, piece of wedding attire. Tripped Matt and I up for a bit because we were thinking extremely like Western. And the answer was sorry, which SARI, not like apologies, very good. And I liked 59 across as well. Firm hand, ? Paralegal. It tickled my goat. What do you say?
Your pickle? No. Your funny bone? I don't know.
What
am I saying?
It was funny. I'm watching a show about lawyers and I'm like, I should be a lawyer. So it was really just like getting me going. 4 down, record of future achievements if all goes well. And I liked this to-do list. Productivity. So keep it up.
That should be a notepad to-do list name.
Yes.
Wait. Well, okay. We'll tell Brooke to do it because I don't want to steal her idea, but
it's cute.
That's kind of cute at the top, like record of achievement, and then you can fill in what you want.
Yes. It's very cute. It's
That's
very
manifestation.
motivating. Yes, it's motivation for yourself. Very good. And then you got all the others that I had listed. But I will continue, and I'm going to talk about the Thursday, August 5th New Yorker by Caitlin Reed. Can you tell how much we love the New Yorkers? And also, how many women we're talking about today, like constructors, which is always, good. Caitlin's puzzle was amazing. I liked it a lot. I liked 26 across. Puzzle that's wall-to-wall fun, ?
Escape room.
Maze.
Yeah. Still good.
Yes. I would love to do like a hedge maze. Not like a corn maze, like a hedge maze. I feel like it's a little bit more ominous. It gives that like Goblet of Fire vibes from Harry Potter.
I don't know. I feel like I've done a lot of mazes in my life and they never do much for me.
I feel like I've not done a lot of mazes in my life. So maybe I just need to do a couple more before I write them off.
Because I feel like there's no, like, I need one with real pressure.
We should do a haunted maze. I'm saying that like for Halloween. I just suggested a scary event to Grace and she turned it down.
I like haunted houses, but there's something about, I guess a maze is fine. I think you would be fine in a haunted house. It's scary for like the first 2 minutes and then it's like, okay, how many more ways can a person jump out at me?
It depends on the haunted house, but yes. I have a low startle reflex, so.
Yeah, so do I. I hate things jumping out at me. Yeah. For someone who like loves scary movies, I'm the biggest scaredy cat, things like that. But
Grace
I feel
and I, with the blankets up to our eyes, watching scary TV, we're
with my ears plugged. That's the thing. Every time I watch something scary by myself, which is not often, but like some TV shows teeter on being like too scary to watch by myself. But I'll just like put it on mute at really scary parts, and then
you're like,
it's
okay,
fine.
We're done. We're
just
done
read
here.
The subtitles.
Can you tell that we're getting excited about Halloween?
It's almost time. I feel like
I know.
What, September 1st? Boom.
It's
decorations up.
I know. I need to lock in my costume now. Or at least start working on it. It's gonna be good. Anyway, back to Caitlin Reed's puzzle. 32 across. I'd never heard of this before. Rhyming term for a low alcohol brew. And the answer is near beer. Never heard of this, so I looked on Wikipedia. This is the definition from Wikipedia. Low alcohol beer is beer with little or no alcohol content and aims to reproduce the taste of beer while eliminating the inebriating effects of standard alcoholic brews.
Okay.
Near beer. Very well. I liked this one. I thought you would like it too. One down, result of a winter character building activity, ?
Snowman?
Yes. Isn't that fun?
Cute. Yes.
And then the last one, another thing I didn't know. Maybe you knew it. 21 down, $10 bill, slangily.
Hammy?
Sawbuck.
Is Hamilton not on the 10s?
I have no idea who's on the 10s.
I don't know.
Does that make me sound like an idiot? It doesn't matter. Sawbuck. I feel like Caitlin Reed made that up herself and put it in the puzzle. She's like, I'm making my own slang. More power to her.
Sawbuck? I'll use it.
We both will. That is all I have for that puzzle.
That's all I have overall.
I did want to talk about, I did the Ella Dershowitz New York Times actually, just before we started recording, so I didn't put it here. But the theme was really fun, and it made me feel like a genius. I love when there's like a themed puzzle, and like I solve it, and I'm like, wow, you're smart. Because I think when we first started doing puzzles, it took us ages to like catch on to themes or to like realize what was happening. So now that we do so many puzzles, it like comes to me much more naturally. The revealer was something like temporary place to do business or a hint to however many clues in this puzzle. And the answer was pop-up shop. Pop-up shop. Okay, and so all of the answers, the themed answers, had the word shop in them, except the word shop like popped up into the line above it and then came back down. So it wasn't like a rebus, but if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the shape that it makes. It like the letters pop up and spell shop. And we were like, that's got to be this answer. It's got to be this answer, but it doesn't fit. It's not a rebus. What is it? What is it? What is it? And I'm like, like a flash of lightning struck me. And I got it.
Genius.
So, I am basically a genius. Maybe I would crush it at Lollapuzzoola.
There you go.
Who knows? You never know. That's me. That's all I have, too. So does that mean it's time to flip the coin?
Flip it.
Wow, we're back to flipping the coin.
I'm ready for my topic. But we'll see if I go first.
All right. We're flipping the coin now. Tails. Oh my God.
Go first. My topic comes from the August 3rd New Yorker by Patrick Barry. 22 across. Like many Shirley Jackson stories, the answer is eerie.
I knew you were going to do this. I knew it.
I decided, let's talk about a horror author who has not married their 13-year-old cousin. That's a reference to Edgar Allan Poe, who I did a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, so Shirley Jackson wrote the book that became the TV show. That was one of the first real times you and I hung out.
Mm-hmm. After the spa, yes.
After the spa.
We'll talk about that book in a minute. But let's talk about Shirley Jackson. If you don't already know, she was an American writer known primarily for her works of horror and mystery. She has written short stories. She's written children's books that aren't scary and fiction novels. Some of her most famous works are The Haunting of Hill House, which has been made into multiple movies, and the famous TV show that then became The Haunting of Bly Manor, and I forget, Midnight Mass, but Haunting of Hill House was the first season, and it's so good, but it was one of the first things Chelsea and I watched together. We binged it in like 2 or 3 sittings, and even though Chelsea hates horror, and it's like probably one of the scariest, like, it's definitely one of the scariest things I've ever watched, except for the end. Makes it not that scary anymore.
Right, so. Yeah, no, it was scary, and I embarrassed myself fully in front of Grace by shrieking multiple times. I felt horrible. Yes. And that was in the apartment where the TV was like 800 feet away from the couch, so fun times all around. Times.
Yes, so she holds a place in our hearts.
I do.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's there.
If you haven't read The Haunting of Hill House, which I haven't, but now I want to, you probably have read The Lottery in middle school. That was a satirical short story that she wrote for The New Yorker, where a small farming town holds a lottery every year where essentially one person is chosen to be killed as a sacrifice for good crop yield. And that was back then they didn't like say whether stuff was like humor or not. So people were very confused, thinking that it was potentially real.
Right.
But even though her works are a household name now, it comes as no surprise that she was not appreciated when she was alive, and even after her death, she's sometimes not taken as a serious writer because 1, she wrote for the horror genre, and 2, she's a woman, so that's like the double whammy of not being taken seriously.
Yep.
But I thought, okay, I don't agree with this, but one critic did call her Virginia Werewolf, which is kind of funny. Okay, but let's talk about her life, because she had a very interesting, sad life.
Okay.
Most of this information is from an article in The New Yorker called The Haunted Mind of Shirley Jackson by Zoe Heller. So, Shirley is often associated with New England, like Edgar Allan Poe vibes, which makes sense because she, as an adult, she did live in Vermont, but she's actually a California girl. Okay. And she grew up in an extremely wealthy suburb of San Francisco. Her parents were very rich, but she always felt like an outsider in that community. She spent much of her time in her room writing, much to her mother's dismay, and her mother's name was Geraldine, which...
I'm sorry, what a name.
Fits her perfectly. So Geraldine was a deeply conventional, conservative, Christian Scientist country club woman who openly expressed her discontent with the fact that Shirley was shy, anxious, and not conventionally attractive, and she had a, quote, willful refusal to cultivate feminine charm, which we love that for her.
We love her.
Even after Shirley had grown up and moved away, Geraldine continued writing her letters, criticizing her helter-skelter way of living, her writing career, and saying things like, quote, "I have been so sad all morning about what you have allowed yourself to look like." So I can just imagine this person.
God damn, yeah.
This led to Shirley rebelling against her mother as an adult. She got kicked out of University of Rochester because she didn't go to school. She spent most of her time hanging out in a cafe with her French exchange student friend. But she then transferred to Syracuse University, where she became involved with the campus literary magazine. And this magazine published her first story, Janice, about a teenager suicide attempt. Stanley Hyman was a fellow student at the time. He read the story and decided that he was going to marry Shirley Jackson sight unseen. And they did end up getting married shortly after college. And Shirley's parents did not come to the wedding. They did not approve.
Wild.
But they moved to New York City, and they both became contributing writers to The New Yorker. After their first child was born, they moved to Vermont, where Hyman took a job as a literature professor at Bennington College. And then they had 4 kids, and Shirley basically took on all the domestic labor. She cooked, she cleaned, she did grocery shopping, and the child rearing, which even then was seemed outdated.
Yeah.
But she was a different kind of mom than Geraldine. Their house was, quote, rambling and crooked. She ran a bohemian household. She sometimes would dye her mashed potatoes green, and they would often, her and her husband would host these intellectual social gatherings because he was friends with all these professors.
Sure.
But even though she was much different than her mom, she still wasn't happy. And that's mostly because her husband, Stanley Hyman, was a total jerk. He openly had affairs with his former students, and he felt that he should be able to share accounts of his sexual adventures with Shirley and their friends. In one of the articles I read, they were he had a 100-mile rule where he would only sleep with other women 100 miles away from their town. But he was just a jerk and felt like he should be able to do that.
Ugh.
Yes.
Poor Shirley.
Shirley published fictional and humorous essays about her home life and family in women's publications like Good Housekeeping and Woman's Home Companion, which is very different than the, horror novel she ended up writing. But that was her life at the time. I mean, she just basically was a full-time mom and she hated it, and she wrote humorous essays about it. And these essays are published as a collection in the book Life Among the Savages, which is not a word we use anymore, and then its sequel, Raising Demons. So I kind of want to read those just to see.
Yes, just to see.
But she became the breadwinner of her family because she was getting published in Good Housekeeping and Women's Home Companion. She was making a lot of money for her essays, and Stanley's job in the faculty basically paid nothing, but he still retained control of all the finances, and he would give Shirley allowances as he saw fit. So he was kind of in a weird position where he had to support her writing because it basically was supporting the entire family, but he also had to downplay the fact that her writing career was way more successful than his ever was.
Right.
He would often joke to their friends that Shirley was, quote, a sort of gifted idiot who composed her fiction in a trance state of automatic writing and had to take it to him to have it explained, which is horrible.
I'm sorry, but also that's how writing is.
Yeah.
That's just, I'm sorry. Okay.
It was also known that Shirley was an amateur witch, and she had a library of witchcraft books and manuals. She often spread rumors that she casted hexes on publishing houses and was known to read tarot cards for her family and friends.
I can't.
Yes, I love her. Interestingly, because a lot of her writings featured hauntings, she did not believe in ghosts, and she always said that.
Okay.
At the time, Shirley was so unhappy, and very anxious. She was heavily relying on alcohol, tranquilizers, and amphetamines to get her through the day. She hated being considered just a faculty wife, and she felt ostracized by the townspeople of North Bennington, the small academic town they lived in.
Mm-hmm.
Her revenge was writing The Lottery, which was based off of that small town and the people who lived there.
Wow.
Much of her writing revolved around lonely women who escaped a bad situation only to find that the refuge they escaped to, had its own kind of evil.
Mm-hmm.
The hope of a better life always ends up being a lie, which explains that even though Shirley is a reflection of the fact that Shirley was really unhappy in her marriage, but she was too scared to leave it because, she thought that she had escaped her mom, but then ended up in another abusive situation.
Yeah.
And so she was like, I'm just going to end up in another bad situation, so why leave? She commented on the fact that a lot of her stories had this same theme. There wasn't a lot of variation on theme, and she said, quote, I wrote of neuroses and fear, and I think all my books laid end to end would be one long documentation of anxiety. But
yeah,
her
I'm
stories
getting that from...
Yeah. Her stories did kind of change over time, though, because her early stories are mostly about outside monsters like evil people or communities, but they later evolved into being more about inner monsters. So in The Lottery, the evil townspeople stone a woman to death, but in The Haunting of Hill House, the protagonist Eleanor is haunted by a poltergeist manifested by Eleanor's own rage and unhappiness. it was like a haunting that she could never escape because it was basically her.
Yeah.
But Shirley wasn't all dark and moody. She was also quite funny. In a comment about the response to a lottery essay, she said, quote, "The number of people who expected Mrs. Hutchison to win a Bendix washing machine at the end would amaze you." And, she wrote other humorous essays. And a lot of her stories have two women where one is like confident, funny, adventurous, outspoken, and then the other one is scared, trapped, anxious, much more domestic. Ruth Franklin, the author of Shirley's autobiography, A Rather Haunted Life, says that, quote, "These women represent two halves of one whole, a woman who is pressured by the media and the commercial culture to deny her personal and intellectual interests and subsume her identity into her husband's. All of Jackson's work is animated by the tension she felt between her socially sanctioned role as a happy homemaker and her vocation as a writer. As such, it constitutes nothing less than the secret history of American women of her era."
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah. Jackson's last book was We Have Always Lived in the Castle, published in 1962, and I have actually read this one. It's a short book. Recommend it if you want a little fun, spooky book to read in October. Shortly after this publication, Jackson suffered a nervous breakdown that brought on a prolonged bout of agoraphobia, which prevented her from leaving her house for a year, which is kind of ironic because the book We've Always Lived in the Castle is about two sisters who basically feel like they can't leave their home after their whole family died under mysterious circumstances.
Right.
She didn't write for 2 years as she recovered, but when she started writing again, she had a new hope. She started a journal where in it she looked forward to a future where she would leave her husband and be free from fear. This is a quote from her journal. "If I am cured and well and oh gloriously alive, then my book should be different. Who wants to write about anxiety from a place of safety? Although I suppose I would never be entirely safe since I cannot completely reconstruct my mind. But what conflict is there to write about then? I keep thinking vaguely about husbands and wives, perhaps in suburbia, but I do not really think this is my kind of thing. Perhaps a funny book, a happy book. Plots will come flooding when I get the rubbish cleared away from my mind." And she did eventually start writing a happy, funny book about a recently widowed woman who starts to call herself Angela Motorman and embarks on a new life in a boarding house unencumbered by pets, address books, souvenirs, or even friends. She was 75 pages into this book when she sadly died in her sleep of heart failure at 48 years old.
Oh my God.
But remember, she was taking a lot of different medications still at the time, and they, didn't fully know how all these meds reacted.
Sure.
Her husband ended up publishing the unfinished work along with other short stories in a novel called Come Along With Me, which I kept trying to find something like, do people support this book? Because her husband was abusive towards her.
Right.
But then he ended up publishing like her final work.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I think probably at the time, nobody was questioning it, right?
Yeah.
And now a lot of people don't necessarily read into the history of how a book is getting published. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same with Sylvia Plath and all that. Anyway.
So it's sad that Shirley was never able to see if she'd be able to live on her own and be happy and, write maybe more uplifting stories. But the last words she wrote in her journal were optimistic. Quote, "I am the captain of my fate. Laughter is possible. Laughter is possible. Laughter is possible." The end.
That is really beautiful and also horribly sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Makes me want to read more of her
I know.
books, although they are dense. I mean,
am I brave enough?
At least We've Always Lived in the Castle. It was short, but it was like dense writing.
Mm-hmm.
They made it into a movie on Hulu, and they actually have also made a biopic about her called Shirley.
Oh,
and I think it's on Hulu, but there's a lot of stuff in there that isn't real.
Oh.
Or that didn't really happen.
Okay. So it's dramatized, whatever.
Yeah. Well, they added in like new characters and they made it seem like she could be gay, which people say there was never any.
Yeah, I mean, she was an unhappy woman. But, like that's like that's like the staple for most like lesbian or gay or queer women throughout history, but it's not all of them.
Yeah, some are just unhappy.
Yeah, some are not just straight and unhappy.
But I love the horror genre so much, and it reminds me of like the Godzilla episode where Godzilla is a representation, like horror is just a way to kind of represent like what is going on in society at the time in a way that's different than other genres.
Right.
Because it's like kind of pushed to more extremes. There's no rules in horror.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just think it's cool. And I love women horror writers because women are often not taken seriously in horror, even though like Mary Shelley wrote one of the first horror novels.
Well, yeah. And
ever.
Yeah, Shirley Jackson, like all of this stuff. Like, hello.
Yeah.
That reminds me that we need to watch Godzilla. I've never seen it. But also, I feel like the current like genre of horror is like maybe not necessarily horror, but it's in that same sphere. But there's like there's been a resurgence of zombie movies. Makes sense. Contagion-esque type stuff. Vampires, I think, are resurging too because of like this idea of infection or being other or something like that. So yes, like horror reflects the time in which it's being created, and there's so many zombie things out right now, like so many. But I've never really been into zombies. I am into vampires though.
Yeah, I've never been that into zombies either. I feel like I don't like super bloody, gory horror. I mean, that's not that I don't like it, that it scares me, but it just doesn't interest me as much as like psychological horror.
Yeah.
And haunting type stuff.
Right.
So I feel like I just don't gravitate towards that, but
this is making me like want to rewatch Midnight Mass, which was really good.
I know Midnight Mass. I think about Midnight Mass all the time. If you haven't seen that, that's like the third. Well, it's not really the third season, but it's by the same director and writer.
The creators of Haunting of Hill House and
a lot of the same actors.
Bly Manor. I forget what it's called.
Haunting of Bly Manor.
Haunting of Bly Manor. And Haunting of Bly Manor is good too. It's different than those two, I think. I think
it's not as scary.
It's not as scary. There are scary elements. It's definitely more psychological, emotionally, like traumatizing over than like jump scares. Like Haunting of Hill House has like the family drama. Like
it's so good.
It's so good.
Again,
we should.
But one thing I will say about Shirley Jackson is that I love all her character names in her books. She has like, I just love the names that she uses, like Theodora, Eleanor, or Nellie, who they show up in Haunting of Hill House, and the oldest daughter in Haunting of Hill House is named Shirley. But then her kids' names are like Lawrence, Sarah, Joanne, and Barry. I'm like, really? But we should watch Haunting of Hill House again.
Basically, I feel like, well, okay, Grace and I had our first text exchange today about Halloween. And then she's talking about Shirley Jackson on the podcast as we record tonight. Things are just in motion to like push us into Halloween. I'm over summer. Season. It's spooky season already. I'm thinking about Halloween costumes. It's time. So stay tuned as we update you with where we are on our spooky journey this spooky season.
That's Shirley Jackson.
That's Shirley Jackson. My topic comes from the Friday New York Times by Robin Weintraub. 6 across. What 7 down is pig Latin for? So I'll read 7 down. 7 down. Where a town in Wyoming was once sold for $900,000. And the answer is eBay. So what eBay is pig Latin for? B. Correct.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, I mean, well, now you're going to learn about pig Latin today. So yes, eBay is pig Latin for the word bee, which is very interesting. And also, what the F? A town in Wyoming was once sold for $900,000 on eBay? Wisconsin is weird. Or Wyoming, I should say. Wyoming. What? Wisconsin is also
Imagine if we had
weird.
bought a town together. Amazing.
Be over for everybody.
Yeah.
Be Halloween all year. Halloween town?
Okay. I'm sure that exists somewhere.
I know, but we'd
Salem,
better.
basically. Salem,
Exactly.
Massachusetts.
Exactly. But yeah, we're talking about pig Latin. What do you know about pig Latin?
I just know that it's, you take the first letter and put it at the end and then add A.
AY, yes. That is some of the rules of pig Latin. We've talked a little bit about language on the podcast in our early days of recording. For instance, episode 2, Spectacular Vernacular, was about code switching. And then in episode 14, Same but Different, we talked about translation. But this is the first time in a long time we've brought up language on the podcast, which I'm kind of excited about. So you might think that Pig Latin is a standalone language, like a true language, but you'd be wrong. Pig Latin is actually what's called a, quote, language game, or argot in linguistics. So we're going to dive into some basic linguistic bits before we dive into Pig Latin. Okay, so what is a language game? A language game is a system of manipulating spoken words to render them incomprehensible to the untrained ear. Language games are used mostly by groups trying to conceal their conversations from others. So each host language, let's say English in this case, may have a number of language games like connected to it. Pig Latin is an English language game, okay? And I'll call out more language games at the end, just for some fun. You might also hear language games, and Pig Latin specifically, called argots, cants or cants, secret languages, Ludlows, or anti-languages. A lot of those, their definitions overlap a lot and are very similar, and I'm not going to get into them, but I will talk about two that I think are interesting. So an argot, like a language game, is used by groups to prevent others, like outsiders, from understanding their conversations. Argots differ from language games in that it's more of an idiomatic vocabulary for a particular class or group of people. So that could be people who are involved in illegal activities like thieves or mobsters, gang members, or it is a language used in a specific profession or social group. For instance, working on a film set, you might work on a film set, like show up to a film set and the people are talking about things and you might understand some of what they're saying, but it's going over your head because they're using a lingo or an argot that you're not familiar with. Similarly, working in a restaurant or as a doctor or as a truck driver. The next I want to talk about is an anti-language. I thought this was fun. So an anti-language was first defined and studied by the linguist named Michael Halliday, and he used the term to describe the lingua franca of an anti-society. Okay, I'll break this down. So what is a lingua franca? It's also known as a bridge language or an auxiliary language or a link language. Essentially, a lingua franca is a language or dialect used to make communication possible between groups of people who do not share a native language or dialect, okay? So, anti-languages are lingua francas of an anti-society. An anti-society is a small, separate community created within a larger society as an alternative or in resistance to the community at large. So anti-languages are developed by these societies as a means to prevent outsiders from understanding their communication and as a manner of establishing a subculture that meets the needs of their alternative social structure, okay? So essentially, these kind of like outsider groups make their little groups, and then they're like, F the rest, we're going to make a anti-language. They don't call it an anti-language, it's not usually done in such a sophisticated way, but they essentially create their own language within the language at large that the other people can't understand. It's not to be confused with slang or jargon. Anti-languages use the same basic vocabulary and grammar as the native language, but they just use it in an unorthodox fashion. For example, anti-languages borrow words from other languages, create unconventional compounds, or utilize new suffixes for existing words. According to Halliday, there's a list of 9 criteria that a language must meet to be considered an anti-language, but I'm not going to go into all of those. But you can Google those if you're curious. But I will go through some examples of anti-languages. The most famous is probably Cockney, also known as rhyming slang. There's also CB slang, which is literally what truckers use over radio, CB radios. There's Verlan, which is a French anti-language, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then there is Grypsera, which was used by Polish prisoners in Germany in the early 1900s. So these Polish prisoners were all in the same jail. Some would be released and come back, but they formed their own language within that jail so that they could communicate with each other and the guards wouldn't understand what they were saying. So that brings me back to Pig Latin, a language game. If you wanted to speak in Pig Latin today, how would you do it? So Pig Latin is, like I said, an English language game, and versions of Pig Latin, but by different names, exist in other languages. So we're just going to talk about Pig Latin. So in order to speak Pig Latin today, you take a word and you alter it by adding a made-up suffix to the end of the word, or by moving the first consonant or consonant cluster to the end of the word and adding a vocalic syllable, which is a vowel syllable, to create a suffix. So it sounds a little complicated. It's not that complicated. We'll break it down. So a word beginning with a consonant. You take the letter before the first vowel and you move it to the end of the word, and then you add a vocalic syllable, I, A-Y. For instance, pig would become ig, pay. Latin becomes Astynay. Banana becomes ananabe, and bagel becomes agelbe. It's kind of simple, right? And then words beginning with consonant clusters, you move the whole cluster to the end, and then you add the A. For instance, smile becomes ilsme, string becomes ingstray, floor becomes orflay. And then words beginning with vowel sounds, generally only a yay syllable is added at the end. And then no modifications are done to the front of the word, although that's not universal. That's mostly what happens, but that's not be all end all. For example, eat becomes eat yay, or eat way, or eat hay. Omelet becomes omelet yay, or omelet way, or omelet hay. And egg becomes egg yay, or egg way, or egg hay. Okay? So where did Pig Latin come from? You might think that Pig Latin is a descendant or an offshoot of Latin, but Latin has nothing to do with Pig Latin other than sharing a similar name. Latin's a full language, and it's also a dead language. They're not connected. That being said, some scholars and linguists believe that Pig Latin may have evolved from word games or language games played by monks who played language games with the real Latin.
Okay.
Nothing really to connect them, but, monks playing language games, and that trickles down, and now we've got Pig Latin.
It always starts with the monks.
It always starts with the monks. There are also examples of Pig Latin type language games being used when Shakespeare was alive and writing his plays, specifically a language game called Dog Latin. It's also known as Cod Latin. It's a jargon that imitates Latin by essentially, quote, translating English words into Latin. They don't actually conjugate words into Latin. They kind of fudge it all up, okay? Dog Latin is usually a humorous device. It's mocking scholarly seriousness, and Shakespeare used Dog Latin in his play Love's Labour's Lost. I'll read you like a little section for where they use it and then an explanation. So the character Costard says, go on. No, sorry, I'll start that over. Costard says, go to, thou hast ad dungill at the finger's end, as they say. And then Holofernes says, oh, I smell false Latin. Dunghill for ungum. None of this makes any sense to me, right? So the fake Latin, the dog Latin that Costard says is ad dunghill. And Holofernes explains that Costard is using false Latin. Costard uses ad dunghill because it sounds enough like ad unghum, a Latin phrase for something being done to an exact measure or standard. And so the joke is that he was using dog Latin. And we laugh.
That William Shakespeare.
It's a belly laugher. I don't know what the phrase is. But yeah. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly where Pig Latin started from. It's not like they can say, oh yeah, these monks played this thing and then that evolved into Dog Latin, which evolved into Pig Latin. No. None of these are like necessarily connected with each other, but it's just an example of like how language games kind of have been used throughout history and time. As long as language exists, language games will exist, right? Because people want to keep secrets from one another, blah, blah, blah. So Pig Latin started showing up in the USA, the US of A, in the 1800s. It's believed that it was developed by children in the 1800s as a way to keep adults out of their conversation, okay? There are other names that Pig Latin can be referred to or has been referred to in the past, or that makes Pig Latin kind of a relative of other word games that were kind of going on at the time, or language games, such as Hog Latin, Double Dutch, and Pig Greek. So Hog Latin, there was a publication called The Galaxy, and they published examples of Hog Latin in 1866. So The Galaxy explains that Hog Latin is used by young boys to, quote, mystify eavesdroppers. A boy asking a friend to go with him says, wiggy, yugi, gogi, wiggy, meegi. And the other, replying in the negative, would say, nogi, igi, wogi. So that's Hog Latin, which is very cute, right?
Yes.
And then Pig Greek, in an 1844 issue of the United States Magazine and Democratic Review, a monthly political journal published in the 19th century, none other than Edgar Allan Poe mentioned both Dog Latin and Pig Greek, okay?
It's all connected.
It's all connected. He says, quote, I cannot imagine why it is that Harrison Ainsworth so bepeppers his books with his own Dog Latin and Pig Greek, unless, indeed, he agrees with Encyclopedia Chambers that nonsense words sounds worse in English than any other language. Essentially, he's like criticizing this writer of like, why are you using dog Latin and Pig Greek? He's like using made up words in his books. And then the Oxford English Dictionary has the earliest written use of the phrase Pig Latin in 1896 when J. Willard wrote in The Atlantic, quote, The Atlantic showing up, which I love. We love The Atlantic on this podcast. So J. Willard wrote in The Atlantic, quote, They all spoke a queer jargon which they themselves had invented. It was something like the well-known Pig Latin that all sorts of children like to play with. So he's like talking about a group that has their own invented language, and he references children's Pig Latin in that reference, which is interesting. By the early 20th century, everybody knew what Pig Latin was. Arthur Fields, an American singer-songwriter, released the song Pig Latin Love in 1919. The title of the song is followed by the subtitle, Aye Ole Uye Eride. Okay, so I've got Grace, I sent Grace a link to Pig Latin Love by Arthur Fields, and she's queued up at 35 seconds, and she is going to play. You have to listen closely because it's a very old recording from 1919, but you'll hear him talk about and go into Pig Latin. So go ahead.
Here's what he said last night. Aye, every day. You're a wonderful child. It's K-E-May, every day. Say you're driving me wild.
What is it? Aye, uye, ule, uye, every day. Very cute. Okay, so that was 1919. Let's fast forward to the 30s. The Three Stooges, we've also talked about the Three Stooges on this podcast, started using Pig Latin in their films. Moe and Larry even taught Curly in their 1938 film the rules of Pig Latin, which made Pig Latin more accessible to like the average Joe. You know, kids were using this, and now suddenly the Three Stooges had it in like their movie, and now adults and everybody knew how to do Pig Latin. And they taught Curly Pig Latin in Tassels in the Air. That's the name of the film. Curly doesn't really learn well or quickly, but they did teach him 2 words that eventually became real words or at least slang words in American English. The first is Ixnay, and the second is Amscray. I think those are the 2 most famous Pig Latin words. Ixnay on the whatever A, and then Amscray. So Ixnay is a Pig Latin for nix, and Amscray is Pig Latin for scram.
I always think of in Lion King when Zuzo, is that his name? Zuzu is like, Ixnay on the Oopitstay.
Yes, exactly.
I had no idea what that meant when I was little.
And now I know.
Now I know.
And now she knows. Okay, and then probably the most famous use of Pig Latin of this time period in the 1930s comes from 1933, the movie Gold Diggers, when Ginger Rogers sings a verse of We're in the Money in Pig Latin. And it's amazing, and I'm going to send Grace a clip right now. First of all, if you have not seen Gold Diggers, starring Ginger Rogers, you're missing out. It's amazing. And the song We're in the Money is amazing. We're in the money. We're in the money. Anyway.
That's the type of singing you should be doing. You were born in the wrong decade, just for that one specific.
Grace, I've always said that. Okay, so Grace has the clip of Ginger Rogers singing We're in the Money in Pig Latin, and she's going to listen to it right now. And that's good.
It's the direct eye contact with the camera for me.
Her costume's amazing, though. Like, the kind of, like, money loincloth thing that she's wearing. a vibe. We're in the money. And I would play, well, obviously these will be in the actual audio, but the name of the YouTube video for the Ginger Rogers one is Trippy Ginger Rogers Pig Latin, which is hilarious to me.
It is kind of trippy.
It is extremely trippy. Anyway, and so Pig Latin kind of was like really big during like the 1930s. Everyone was doing it. It was in songs. As you can see, Ginger Rogers, one of the most famous stars of her time, was singing a full song and like a big Hollywood blockbuster in Pig Latin. Anyway, the question that comes up next is, has Pig Latin produced real words? We've already talked about this. Ixnay and amscray are the two most famous Pig Latin words that are kind of like in our lexicon now as English speakers. And then I also wanted to pull up reference another word that we talked about on a previous episode. Grace brought it up. And I think you mentioned that it might be Pig Latin, but nobody really knows the origin of this word. And the word itself is kayfabe, which is from professional wrestling to mean essentially it is a term in professional wrestling that refers to the strict code of secrecy used around the stage spectacle. And some people think it is Pig Latin for be fake. And like that's kind of like how it evolved. And it kind of makes sense. Like Pig Latin was on the rise at the same time that professional wrestling was on the rise. So maybe I mainly wanted to point it out because how many of our topics showed up in our topics?
I know.
This week.
Wild.
Yeah, you have to be listening to this podcast, obviously, because
to get all the little references.
You have to. And I'll help you solve crosswords, hopefully, at the end of the day. I'm going to end with a couple just examples of other language games from around the world. I'll start with what is called, excuse my pronunciation, some of this is in languages that I don't think I've ever heard myself. So I'm going to try my best here.
Okay.
Grace is laughing. She's like, you should have looked this up. I should have. Okay, the first is Te Fulerit Me F, which translates to speaking with F, and the host language is Albanian. Essentially, the basic rules for this language game is that all vowels are doubled and F is placed between them. And it's actually spoken mostly by kids and teenagers between their friends, which I thought was interesting. Something I found with doing this research is that most of these like language games, anti-languages, a lot of them are started with kids as a way to stop adults being able to understand what they're saying, which I think is pretty cool. Another is S language. The host language is Cantonese. Essentially, you would repeat each syllable, changing the initial consonant to an S. Again, used by children and teenagers to avoid understanding adults. Then we have Agi Pagi or Hagi Pagi, which is the host language is English. And you would insert an AIG, AIG, before the rhyme of each syllable. For instance, hello, how are you becomes Haig, Elo, Ago, Hago, Agar, Yago. That's Haggy Paggy, baby.
That was right off the tongue. You sound like a Minnesotan.
I do. Does this sound like my native tongue? Did I do good?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very fluid, easy.
Easy to understand, comprehend, all that. This is like a famous like language game or like Argo. It's called Verlan and the host language is French. Essentially, they're inverted syllables, often followed by like other adjustments. I'm just going to give you a couple examples. So the word, I'm going to butcher French here, but the word Racaille, Racaille, becomes Calra, Caillera. So you take the first syllable and you move it to the end of the word, for instance. Another example would be noir becomes Renault. And then femme becomes mouf. So you just kind of like take the first syllable and move it to the end, and that's Verlan.
I feel like I've seen this on TikTok.
I think so too. Yes, that wasn't like new to me. Another is Bet language, and the host language is Hebrew. So each vowel is reduplicated with a leading B, which I didn't quite understand what that means, but I did think that there was a fun fact here. There is a song that won the Eurovision Song Contest titled Eba Nibi, based on the game, and it won in 1978. So we got more songs with language games in them. We had the Arthur Fields, like Pig Latin Love.
I think it's easy to rhyme stuff if you have a language game.
You can pretty much do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's perfect for a song.
And then here's another one. This is called Guishin Mal, which translates to ghost language. It can also be called Dokab Mal, which translates to ogre language, and the host is Korean. So essentially you put an S plus a vowel or a B plus a vowel between syllables. An example. Ne nomu yepeo means you are so pretty. That's how you would say it in Korean. And that becomes noso musu ye sepeoso.
All right.
You got to trust the process here.
I know. I feel like once you are able to understand a language game, that means that you have become fluent in the host language.
Yes. I'm still grappling with Pig Latin.
Pig Latin's hard, yeah. So maybe we're not fluent in English.
I know. I'm doing this in case we have any Korean, French, Hebrew speaking, other English, Cantonese, or Albanian speakers here.
Yeah.
Let me know how bad I effed up your pronunciations, please.
Send us a voice recording of how to actually say it, and we'll play it next episode.
And the last is I Spricket, and the host language is Swedish. So I think this is amazing, and you and I could actually do this. So essentially, we're fluent in Swedish. All of the vowels are changed to I. So can I go to the mall in English would be Kini Giti di Mil.
Okay. Yes, I'm willing to adopt that.
And yeah, so there's just some examples of host languages. I had a lot of really cool sources, so if you're interested, I can't name them all. Hit me up and I will send them to you. But there was a really cool Medium article and a Straight Dope article that helped, and also How Stuff Works and the Boston Globe, just coming in strong for me.
Classic hitters for us.
Classic.
How Stuff Works.
Yes.
Medium
is a great one. So yeah, that's host languages. So
fun. Okay, so we'll try the Swedish one.
Mm-hmm.
As if we need another way to annoy people around us, but
yes, Kini Giti di Mil or whatever. I think it's
Nej.
There. Oh my god, it's over.
Well, let's see. How do you say? Thanks for Lysinine.
There you go. There ye gee.
If you want to talk to us, let us know about any language games you play. You can find us on Twitter, at Good Evening Girls.
Very good, very good. Or Instagram at the Good Evening Girls. God damn, I gotta practice.
We're the Good Eve Girls on Twitter, and then I said it wrong, and then on TikTok as well, we're the Good Eve Girls. But either way, we'll have everything linked below.
We're basically fluent now. I feel so proud of us.
We can totally understand each other too.
We can.
Let's see. Kip Kairas. It's hard when it's like curious. There's a lot of vowels.
Yeah.
Kip Kairas, and
we'll see ye next Timmy. Wick. Or Wick, yeah.
See you next week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out in there. Thanks for hanging in there while we took quite a long break. But we're back.
We are back. You cannot get rid of us. Grace is on the mend.
I'm on the mend. I can't taste and my knees hurt, but I'm here.
She's not going anywhere. Her knees will literally not allow her to go anywhere.
Thank God I don't have to stand for this or take any stairs for this podcast. I just sit here and I just need my arms so I can keep Arnold from jumping up here. But
God bless her. Well, yes, we will see you next week.
See everyone next week.
Keep curious, and until next time, my fair feathered friends, goodbye.
Goodbye.